that's one of the things that the right, particularly on culture and pop culture, lack, and that's, you know, wanting to be a team. And that's like one of the things when I think one of the biggest losses from Andrew Breitbart dying, other than Andrew Breitbart dying, is like that collaboration and him sort of putting together a team. I mean, he brought you were one of the first ones that
Yep.
came on with Big Hollywood, and you just don't see that teamwork, you know, among the right anymore. It's largely personalities that then get in Twitter wars and that sort of thing. And like Andrew Breitbart was like the epitome of someone who got it and loved when other people got it.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew was totally selfless. You know, Larry O'Connor gives me grief because I will go on literally any show. You know, I'll go on Gibo and the Boner in Minot, North Dakota. I just have to make sure that I'm not going to get a question like, what do you think the problem with America is? It's the Jews, right? No, thank you. But Andrew would be on anybody's show anytime. Mm-hmm. And all of us, you know, I don't think any of us would be here where we are without Andrew early on. I mean, who the hell was I to start writing for Big Hollywood? I mean, I knew how to write. I was funny, but I wasn't doing anything. I gave him a tip on a story, and he said, why don't you write it? Mm-hmm. So I wrote it, and he just said, okay, what's next?
That's awesome.
It was so informal. I was the only, when Breitbart exploded later, I was the only guy without an NDA because I was in so early. Mm-hmm. I never signed any papers.
Wow. I mean, we're talking when they were in the basement.
Also, and
yeah, we were. Yeah, I mean, I was like very early.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because Marlo tells me stories about them starting it literally in Andrew's basement with like 3 people and maybe, you know, some very talented freelancers. But
I was one of the freelancers.
It's just one of those great, you know, small business success stories. And I remember when they launched Big Hollywood, I was blown away because being an artist and being a working artist, there was so little that the right covered on entertainment from our perspective, right? So it was such an oasis to be able to go there and have you and Nolte. In fact, Lisa sent me one of your early columns about music and talking about how once you kind of hit 40, you just stop listening. But at the same time, the music is just garbage. And
well, that's also true.
It is true. And your rant in there about 80s music being, you know, peak Americana, but at the same time, your dad coming in and being like, what is that crap you're listening to? You know, and that reminded me of when Lisa and I talked, we were talking the other day about how music does suck. It's awful. I mean, you know, especially pop music. And when you compare it to the pop music of the 80s, which had so many genres that were crossing over into pop music, whether it was new wave, punk, rock and roll, hard rock, metal, a lot of these genres and subgenres crossed over into popular music. That doesn't happen anymore.
No.
And the evidence of that is the fact that when you look at young kids today and you look at the t-shirts they wear, they're the same t-shirts that we wore. And a lot of them are boomer bands, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, AC/DC. The Clash. So now they're still wearing those, but I see probably also Nirvana, Soundgarden, some of the early 90s bands that also were able to cross genre from grunge or alternative into popular music. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, where are their bands that are able to cross over into popular music?
They know that. I mean, in 20 years, you're not going to see, I don't even know a name of a band, The Weeknd. You're not going to see The Weeknd shirts at Hot Topic. You're still going to see Led Zeppelin, Guns N' Roses, Nirvana, The Clash.
I don't get a lot of, I mean, Taylor Swift, I guess, is just solid, just normal pop music, but it's not, it's what the mediocre kids listen to.
Yeah.
You know, I remember one kid and she was kind of goth and everybody thought she was weird. And it was like my 12th grade English class. We're supposed to talk about music. She comes in and talks about freaking Joy Division. And Ian Curtis had just offed himself like 2 years before. Mm-hmm. And everyone's like, what the hell is this? She's the only one who got it. It took me a couple years after that I remember I was to get it. I started UC San Diego '83, and I was in this Pink Floyd-y, Def Leppard morass of crap. And I was working at Dollar Rent-A-Car at San Francisco Airport in the Christmas of '84. And I started listening to KQAK, and I heard the Replacements, the Replacements, I Will Dare, and the Smiths, How Soon Is Now. And it completely changed everything. I was like, and all that slushy garbage just went into the trash. And I was listening to alternative and punk and stuff. And, you know, Joy Division is now one of my favorite bands. And that girl was right.
Yeah.
I hope she didn't have her spirit broken.
It's amazing to me how the 80s and even early 90s stuff. I'm reading the Kennedy Chronicles, which is about Kennedy's time at MTV, and it's making me very nostalgic for early 90s. And I'm just kind of thinking how good that music was and how good the art and the culture was and how rich it was. And I just think to myself, all that stuff ebbs and flows, right? Because that's just the nature of art. But we're definitely not ebbing and flowing these days. I'm just thinking, when is the next wave going to come? Because we're the last generation to actually experience, I think, a organic musical wave or waves. You know,
the only time I'm exposed to normal music or popular music now is when my kids walk by and it's loud enough I can hear their EDM crap, and I don't get that.
Yeah.
Or I'm at the gym and sometimes they'll have rap, and all the rap songs sound the same, and there's a lot of N words in it, and I don't want to be any part of this.
Yeah, same here.
Or it's country, and I can't. And you know, I know a lot of people like country. I can't. It's all the same freaking song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will tell you what the formula is for new country, because I hear it when I'm at the salon. It's like, she's like this, I'm like this, thing you've heard of, chorus together.
well, the other thing, Brett Ellis Easton talks about this. He always talks about how country is the last musical genre, or the only musical genre right now, embracing pop music ideals with melody and such. But to me, it's way too packaged and produced. And I kind of long for, when I listen to Sturgill Simpson, obviously I hear a Waylon Jennings kind of knockoff, but it's still kind of tapping into something that is more real to me, that outlaw country, than the pop stuff that I hear from Taylor Swift or Keith Urban.
I mean, it just seems very predictable to me. You know, this might be the last Saturday night, and then I'll have a girl, and she's wearing jeans that are tight, gonna drink whiskey, also party in the Walmart parking lot.
You forgot to mention your truck.
You got to work in the red Solo Cup in there as well.
And,
you know?
Yeah, the Solo Cup. I mean, you know, the music that we liked was different.
I think it was interesting. I think it was authentic. Whenever I think about what's missing in today's pop culture, it's really an authenticity, and that can only come from the artist.
Yeah.
You know, whether they're authentic or,
the thing
or
is,
not.
artists don't make any money recording anymore. They make money touring.
Exactly.
The business model is a disaster.
Total disaster.
So if you're going to fill you know, you could be the Replacements and fill small clubs and sell a few things and live adequately. Maybe you go tour with Tom Petty before he kicks you off because you're drunken idiots. But you could kind of have a career that way. But now, if you know, you're not getting any record royalties.
No, it's true. The
free.
Streaming changed everything, and it ruined the music industry. There's no incentive to start a band with your buddies in a garage, tour in a bus, and then try and get some kind of record contract and get on the radio or MTV.
That's why there's no rock anymore.
Well, exactly. And then I was thinking the other day, because there's no MTV, because there's no record stores, you know, because there's no central hubs of places where people can go and be exposed to new stuff other than YouTube. That's another reason why there's not this kind of proliferation or incentive to try and get into that business and kick ass. There's some great acts out there. I was turned on to Whiskey Myers, which is a great band from Taylor, Texas, through Yellowstone. Taylor Sheridan liked them, featured them in a couple episodes of Yellowstone. I started listening to their stuff. I was like, these guys are great. I'd love to see them live. Why aren't they bigger? Well, they're not bigger because it's not the 80s or the 90s. They don't have some big record deal, and they don't have corporate sponsors. You know, it's such a different environment entirely. And Alex Van Halen said a couple of years ago, he said back in the day, Van Halen would get $1 a record when it came to royalties. And then that dollar would get split up into, you know, amongst the band, however they have their splits. Now you get 50 cents for every 250,000 streams. You know, I mean, what a jip. It's no wonder rock is dead and nobody gives a shit about forging into that business and kicking ass and taking names. There's no.
Why? I mean, why would you? You know, why would you spend years and years rehearsing when you can take your computer, create a quick song, and then some crappy rap over it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, you know, what is the impetus to get into rock and roll? Chicks and money.
Yeah,
the chicks are still there, but the money is not. So that's why we're where we are, where we're at right now with music, and it sucks.
It does. I don't know what the answer is, but it's really hard to compete with free.
Yeah, Alex said that the future of music that he sees is just live performances, going back to really kind of what started it all, which is people congregating together, enjoying music, and building an audience through live. But I still don't know if that's a way to kind of capture what the industry once was. You know,
well, it's also hard because people don't want to go out anymore. Between COVID and video games, there's a whole generation. It was like, hey, it's Friday night. Where are we going?
Yeah.
Well, and also they don't have their driver's licenses or jobs to buy cars, so they're gonna have to what, use Uber or have their parents drive them.
Yeah.
And even when you do, if you're 16 to 18 in California, you can't drive with your friends.
How's
you're
that?
Not allowed to have other teens in the car.
You're shitting me.
When I was 16, you know, me and my freaking 73 Mustang, off we went.
Oh, yeah.
I grew up in the same town as Gutfeld at the same time. We were both 83 grads. High school's about a half-mile apart. And I'll be doing Gutfeld on December 6th, by the way.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
And, you know, what'd you do Friday? You went out.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe you went to a movie. Maybe you hung with your friend. Maybe you cruised El Camino Real.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you didn't sit home and go,
no way. No way.
I don't get that.
I don't get it either. And part of it was we wanted to get the hell away from our parents. And that's kind of been erased too.
Yeah. I think a lot of kids like their parents, and other kids can just shut the door and go into their little world of electronics.
Yeah.
The thing is, you have these little auto dopamine injectors in the form of video games and pornography.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of people just sit in their places and, you know, I mean, if we wanted the dopamine, we had to work for it, damn it.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Very true.
The game is a sure thing. You know, you don't go out there and maybe get the girl, maybe get rejected.
Yeah.
The video game dopamine is like the sure thing.
Yeah. Yeah. They're dopamine chasers.
Pornography.
Yeah. It's dopamine chasing. Whereas we had to go out and learn risk versus reward. And, you know, that reward was great. It's awesome, especially when you're risking. You know what I mean? There's nothing that really replaces that. But what has replaced it is just this easy dopamine hit, whether it's a like, an outrage click, a video game, you know, or porn or free porn. So it's
and I understand. You know, I mean, obviously, I'm on Twitter, and I do like it when people find something on there funny. Like I found it cool when people laugh when I was doing stand up.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I get it. I think it's changed people. I don't think they have as much fun as we had.
They don't. Mm-hmm. They don't. And part of that also is that we didn't have the surveillance back then that we do now, from the standpoint of cameras everywhere. You know, when we were going out and raising hell, people weren't recording us, and there was no real way to record us. So we were much more comfortable risking more and doing crazy shit because nobody would know about it other than you and your circle of friends. And then it got around to other people. Your parents would never know. But I think we're really blessed to have grown up in the 80s and the 90s in that analog world where we had much more freedom, far more freedom than what they have today. Now everybody's basically acting for the cameras, whether it's the camera on the traffic stop or your friend posting something on TikTok. So nobody's really being their true self, and therefore I think risking things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I just think those are character builders for who you are later in life. It's very risky business.
Well, the other thing is, if your whole life is taking dopamine hits, you don't build up any memories.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Yeah.
You know, remember that video game we played? Man, that was cool.
Right.
but I mean, I got a lot of memories. Some are more hazy than others. But I've got a lot of memories.
Yeah, I was just going to say, would you rather have the memory of some video game, or would you rather have the memory of, you know, some girl that you really liked, that you got your confidence up to go and talk to, and by the end of the night you were making out with and got her number?
Oh yeah.
You know, and maybe you were a little 3 sheets to the wind. These are, you know, it's like it's risky business. You know, sometimes you got to say what the fuck, and if you can't say it, you can't do it.
Yeah, I think there's a weird combination of innocence and sordidness among the new kids. Mm-hmm. These damn kids today. I don't think, you know, I don't think we were sordid in the 80s. I don't think it was like, it was, you know, it never occurred to us that one of our friends might OD on fentanyl.
Right.
You know, somebody might get drunk and throw up, and ha, that's funny. Had to hose out his parents' car.
Yeah.
You could have people in DUIs. We didn't at my high school, thank gosh.
It didn't ruin your life back then, though, like it does today.
No, it didn't. I think they're now it does really screw you up.
Yeah.
And I'm not out advocating for people driving drunk.
Right. No, it's weird. I never figured that I would be in the position of saying those kids today and complaining that they're not taking enough risks. I thought it would be the opposite.
Yeah, and they're so focused on getting into the right college, which I think is nonsense.
Yeah, especially today.
I mean, you know, a lot of these kids in high school do little or nothing but homework and activities designed to, you know, brush up a college application. And the colleges understand the scam. They charge you $250,000, but your kid's going to graduate and he's going to get the credential. You just got to get in. And then once he's in, we're not going to expect anything.
Yeah.
Over half of the grades at Harvard are A's.
Mm-hmm. I read that. That's amazing.
Well, they understand the business model. The business model is get into Harvard.
Right.
And after that, and the agreement is you go, you do your thing for 4 years, you will get the credential and the grades. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really matter if you learn anything or anything else. That is not the purpose of this enterprise. The purpose of this enterprise is to provide sinecures for administrators and faculty.
Yeah. Middle management hires. They like to give out the grades so they can say, "Oh, we produce geniuses," you know.
Yeah,
and that's why we're going to charge you
from Harvard. I mean, for gosh, I remember we had one. I think it was Dartmouth gal, and she wanted to come and work for my firm as a clerk or something, and you know, set an interview. She's late. And well, you know, I couldn't find the garage and everything. We're like, yeah, it's kind of hard too, because it's kind of a weird place. Fine. Had her come back for a second when she was late again. My partner, who is not a conservative, met her at the door and said, yeah, you're done. What? You're done. You're late twice. You're not getting this job. And she was freaking offended. She's like, I'm from Dartmouth. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah. Or my partner was like, yeah, you're not getting this job. And she'd never had anyone treat her like that.
Well, and the funny thing is now that person who, you know, that's now a disability. Because I saw a video that was like, people are not making, you know, plans for people that are time management challenged. And, it's now like a disability that needs to be, respected.
Accommodated.
Yeah, accommodated. And, I just don't get it. I mean,
well, look.
I get it, whenever you.
Well, the proper answer is nice try, no. But the minute someone goes, oh, well, my gosh, I don't want to be thought of as mean or something, you're allowed to say no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You should say no. That means there are less stupid things going on. And if our society said no the first time some dude said, yeah, my pronouns are, we wouldn't have these problems.
Mm-hmm.
What it is people trying to be nice and helpful and sensitive.
Yeah. It's very Lord of the Flies to me. Every time I see, a college campus and the kids are basically running the asylum, I just say to myself, oh, it's this Lord of the Flies culture where the adults don't want to be adults, which is to stand up and put their foot down and draw a hard line in the sand and say, absolutely not. And this thing about being late, what did you call it? Time
management challenge or something like that.
It's funny. I have been late on a couple of occasions.
Dysphoria.
I always call and I say, I'm running late, but I'm on my way. This is what I'm dealing with. I'll be there.
Yeah.
It's called CYA. It's so easy to do.
It's always, or you get there 15 minutes early.
Yeah, then you don't have that problem. Absolutely.
The thing is, high schools and ours, in some ways, there are huge consequences. You gotta be, your life is ruined.
Yeah.
But in other ways, there's no consequences.
Right.
It's just not going to work.
Well, yeah, I want to respond with, well, it triggers me when you act like your time is worth more than my time. And I find it very othering when you tell me that I'm not worth being on time for.
Well, one of the weird narcissism plays is you are obligated to care much more about me than I'm obligated to care about me or anything else. Right. You look at the Palestinian thing. For some reason, now Israel and us are supposed to care more about Palestinian children than the Palestinians. Okay? Right. The Palestinian children who are getting killed as a direct result of Palestinians going and killing Israelis. This is not an unforeseeable result. In fact, it was expected. Yet somehow the Israelis are somehow morally obligated to care more about the Palestinian children. No, again, the answer is no. We're not going to do that. You may care more and you may surrender.
Right.
But the thing is, first of all, we have a society of moral illiterates. That's my Monday Townhall column. And I'm frankly done debating and arguing with dumb people who are arguing, who are making points in bad faith. I'm kind of at the point of I'm going to exercise my power ruthlessly to obtain my goals. And you're going to call me a fascist, but you know what you were calling me when I was reasonable and listening and arguing and debating? You also called me a fascist. So I'm not seeing the freaking downside.
Yeah, exactly. They called you a Nazi. So, I mean, what exactly do their words mean beyond that?
Well, I'm just not interested in their words at all. Call me a racist, call me a sexist, call me a transphobe. I don't care. It means nothing to me. I'm totally indifferent to what they think. Yeah, absolutely. And the only power people have over people who can kick their asses is convincing the people who can kick their asses not to kick their asses. And I'm at the ass kicking point. You know, I'm simply no. I see those jerks in the road, blocking it off because of the weather. Yeah. And all I can think of is the people they're blocking should literally beat the living shit out of them, and that should be okay. Of course, one of the problems in our society is if you don't rely on the government to protect you, you're a criminal, and the government also is not going to protect you from criminals. So you've got a social contract that they've torn up and expect you to abide by. Right. Yeah. And again, 80s, 90s, people blocking the road, people would, and back then there were very little cameras, very little surveillance. People would get out and you get your ass kicked, and that would be the last time. Absolutely. I mean, I am not advocating for going full Brazil like the old man who went out and shot a bunch of people the other day who were blocking the road. Just put it on this way. You don't want me. The prosecutor don't want me on his jury.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, you would get your ass kicked for stuff like this back then.
And you should. I think a lot of people have not been punched. You think somebody's kicked Harry Sisson's ass before?
Maybe, no, and not even his dad. His dad's never even spanked his bottom blue.
Well, if his
Whereas, I mean, my mom chased me with a wooden spoon and a rolled up newspaper. My dad never had to do anything except just give me the look. I just got the look, and I was scared shitless. And I was also
the thing is, the people whose power is like physical power have been restrained for a while because we had a society that prioritized other kinds of power. But eventually those people are going to go, I'm tired of taking shit from this pipsqueak.
Right.
And again, the strong will once again prevail, because that is frankly the natural state of man.
Yeah.
You can only talk people on protecting their own interests for a certain period of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then they're going to go, well, I know you don't approve of how I protect my own interests, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly, the BLM riots led directly to the J6 riot. They had to stomp that down because they didn't want normal people thinking, oh my gosh, you can do this too. Now we got these Palestinian riots. The next time, I don't know if it's going to get stomped down. Academia is going to change because they have lost a lot of their friends. For a lot of people, it was guys, folks like I went to school, I had a good time. And a lot of people were like, well, yeah, school is cool. I was in a frat, we went to football games. Yeah, go, Notre Dame or whatever. And now they're seeing that's not the school I went to.
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly it becomes, instead of like nostalgia, it becomes resentment that you changed what I did, and now it's a bunch of bull. You're going to start seeing red states, well, you already have in Florida and Texas, start really digging down on these guys, and they're going to be like, well, where's all the money we used to get? Well, I'm not paying you to hate me.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There's
by the way,
from Harvard.
We're taking over your hiring.
Mm-hmm.
Because all you're doing is hiring communists. I've got constituents, calling me because their kid's getting yelled at because his ancestors came from Norway. That's not going to do. We're going to start. We are taking the hiring part out of your hands.
Right.
They're going to be like, well, what do you do? You hate academics. You're anti-intellectual. Don't care what you think.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we're actually, we don't like turning the American youth into a bunch of Jew haters. That's actually
exactly. It's like, and the thing is, you don't argue with them. You're an anti-intellectual. Don't care if you think I'm anti-intellectual.
Yeah, that's
totally irrelevant to me. Here's what I'm doing. Find another gig. Oh, by the way, we're repealing tenure.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, since we're talking about Andrew, was, Andrew's famous for saying politics is downstream from culture, but I don't think most people, conservatives included, even know what that means all these years later. But, explain what it means to you, and also why was the emphasis on culture and pop culture so important to Andrew?
Well, eventually people are going to pick up the kind of culture that you see in the media, in movies and such. And we kind of did in the 80s.
Yeah.
Very pro-American, very positive, and it stayed through the 90s.
Yeah. It was, Kirk Cameron also said that it was Christian.
Pop culture turned grunge.
Yeah.
A lot of everybody's racist, and then politics followed that.
Mm-hmm.
We need a positive, pro-American, pro-freedom pop culture, or at least a pop cultural voice, which trying to do for the books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it was important because Andrew made that connection. Mm-hmm. And that's why he started Big Hollywood as the first Breitbart kind of Substack thing.
Yeah.
And, I don't understand why so many conservative donors, allegedly conservative donors, are like, oh, hey, I'm going to give $5 million to the Conservative Forum for Liberty, Families, and Eagles and Forums. we're going to do this guy's going to do an important white paper on tax reform.
And that's going to fix everything.
Yeah, all right, high five. You know, I think a mini series of People's Republic, streaming on Netflix or Amazon, would do exponentially more good than the Liberty Forum for Eagles and Forums and Families and Liberty plus Eagles. Yeah,
I would even say, even if it wasn't live action, I would love to see an animated People's Republic. That would be awesome as well.
It gives you something to rally around. It gives you something to share with fellow conservatives. It gives you a model of how to be, and it raises morale. I mean, there's just nothing negative.
Right.
And we need to do more of that stuff. And there is some of that stuff out there. I think there's more than there was.
There is, yeah.
But
it's getting better.
It's getting better. One thing that was interesting with the Hollywood is I kind of always expected, well, when they figure out half of America is not being served, they'll eagerly jump in and supply that stuff. If you're purely an economic determinist, that would be accurate, but they're not.
Right.
The people in Hollywood have their own culture and their own, personal hierarchies and social milieu, and they want to be loved. And being loved is more important than money. They've got enough money. You make a lot of money just with crappy liberal stuff. If you want your kid to get into the right preschool on the west side of LA, you're probably not going to make People's Republic.
Right.
Well, and the same is for the conservative donor class. They'll always have their money, and it's like, do they want their ideas ingested and read, or do they want to fund white papers so they can go to galas? And
there's a lot of that. They also don't want uncomfortable conversations at the country club. When somebody comes up, why are you literally murdering trans people by denying their transness?
Yeah, I would argue that those people want to be like...
Nobody is a wuss like a Republican donor.
I would argue
that... boy is rolled over harder on a cell block than a Republican donor.
But Kurt, aren't those people kind of the same as the Hollywood people, where they want to be liked?
Yes.
Being liked is more important.
Being liked is a...
Well, and being liked by a certain subset of people, because they could be liked by millions of people by funding People's Republic for Kids.
People's Republic for Kids. That was one of the appeals of Donald Trump, is that he didn't really care what those people think. Now, he did care in some ways, but in other ways, he really didn't. And he was willing to talk about things you weren't supposed to talk about, like illegal aliens, about the mishandling of wars. That was... Trump won because Trump brought in people who hadn't been heard, because he was talking about things that weren't supposed to be said.
Right.
And Trump was a necessary thing in 2016. I think we're very lucky to have had him. I don't think he's going to win in 2024. I don't believe any of the polls. I think all the people mad at Biden will immediately go back to Biden, because at the end of the day, it's more important for them to vote against Trump than to vote in their own economic interests. Again, economic interest, if it was determinative, we would have, President Ted freaking Cruz. But it is, Trump's success and his crime in the eyes of the establishment was giving voice to people who weren't supposed to be heard about things that weren't supposed to be said. And a lot of Republicans are trying to do that now. Ron DeSantis actually is. Nikki Haley is actually against it. You can't be subservient enough to big corporations. Probably not a killer message now. She's really a cutting edge of 2004. I don't know what Chris Christie's freaking deal is. And Tim Scott coming in as John Lithgow in Footloose.
Exactly.
I'm not sure Not sure I saw that coming.
No, that's it's just taken straight out of my mind. I thought the exact same thing. I was like,
all I could say is
this is
I
John
support
Lithgow.
him if he wanted to send Kevin Bacon to Gitmo for dancing.
Speaking of those with money on the right, do you think that it's a generational thing that possibly once the boomers shove off and the money goes to their Gen X children, do you think that maybe they will accept that you can reach more people outside the political divide and change hearts and minds through storytelling, within mediums of entertainment, like with your novels and other forms of entertainment, whether it's animation, whether it's TV series? I mean, will they make a real attempt, or will they remain creatures of comfort and stick to their white papers, consultants, strategists, politicians, polls, and political ads?
Creatures of comfort, because I think they, Lisa, you dealt with these people. They want to have the front table at a gala and be shouted out from the podium.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they want.
They want their names etched in stone.
Yeah, I mean,
in the lobby of the forum.
Maybe you can, maybe some of them. Hey, if you do this, you can be an executive producer, and you can be at the premiere. Maybe that's what it takes. But if you're giving, look, nobody gives. You get something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you're giving $50 million to Harvard, you're having a name on the building.
Mm-hmm.
How we turn that recognition into cultural thing, because that's what you need, is a question. Because they're not all. There are a few, but they're not all the George Soroses who just want results.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is a lot of them are intimidated because these are not their areas. They're intimidated by the conservative movement. They made their money, selling widgets.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody comes and does the Henry, the guy, I forget the guy from the Music Man, but you know who I mean. There's monorail.
Right.
And they're like, oh, okay, I'll do that. I don't know anything about it, but that sounds great. Culture is more of a business. So maybe they're more comfortable, and then they ask questions like, how do you plan to make money? And a lot of people don't make money in pop culture. And maybe they get scared away from that. Maybe they look at it as a business thing rather than a charity thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
and also I think a lot of times on the right, they make let's get involved in culture and pop culture, but the center of whatever the thing is still politics, and this is what I believe, and you'll believe it by the end of the show.
Yeah.
They also think they might also think that by the time you're done with this, you'll all be little Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
No. Yeah, which that's naive. That's foolish. I mean, if anything, if when you're creating things and the message is like Robert Davi says, the message is baked into the ravioli. It's not something that's shoehorned in, or they don't beat you over the head with it. You can use storytelling to bring the audience to the conclusion on their own through the beats of the story, right? That's the best way to influence somebody or to change hearts and minds. I'm a little bit more optimistic. I think that the glue that holds Gen Xers together is pop culture. Yeah. We didn't, the boomers had Vietnam, they had women's suffrage, they had MLK, they had all these cultural events. We had Saturday morning cartoons, Star Wars, the movies that we grew up watching. That's what binds us. And I think potentially there will be some donors that come into the fray that understand that and want to get into the game because they understand that it's really powerful. It's far more powerful than polemics or any political ad that you can make. And that if we want to reach normies, if we want to reach all those people, the Chip and Joannas out there in the heartland who are not into politics, who have never been influenced, people like my stepdad, who's never voted until Trump because he was never interested. Mm-hmm. I think that they'll understand that the only way that you reach those people is with storytelling, and that's harnessing creatives like you and me, Kurt, and Lisa, to tap in to the kind of stories that are going to reach those types of people. So,
well, the other thing I think would be great is that, and this is, I think, what Kurt, you've been able to do with the series, is to get into a place where we don't need the donors. You don't need a donor to fund the Kelly Turnbull series. You put it on Amazon.
That's
People
true.
are
What you do need is to somehow force the distribution.
Yes.
You need starter money and you need to force the distribution.
Right.
Because, if you think Amazon's just going to go, oh, you've spent $50 million on a Kelly Turnbull series. Why, here you go.
Yeah.
Here's some money. They're going to look at it and go, oh, that's not what I want. You got to figure out ways to force it in. The people who've done the best are really the openly Christian folks with their movies.
Yeah,
They've
well, and part of
actually
that, I
managed
think,
to
is
do.
they're coordinated through, church groups and things like
Yep.
that can mobilize and go and have a great, opening weekend.
Yeah. And what was that? Search for Freedom or Cry for Freedom or something?
Sound of Freedom.
Sound of Freedom. That was another one that got
Right.
good support. I think the support's there, but that was kind of a fluke.
Well, but actually, speaking of fluke, the great thing about the folks that did Sound of Freedom is they're not doing the model that most, I think, right-wing creatives do, and that's that you have this big moment and then you don't hear from them for 5 or 10 years. And we talked about this, I can't remember if it was on the last show.
Our last show.
Yeah, that they're now following it up with what's really hot. Like, I think it's manga or anime. I'm not sure which is which.
They're doing an anime.
They're following up a big success with another thing that's big success, but different. And, it's not 10 years apart from these projects. Yeah,
that's Angel Studios. And they've got a sci-fi thriller coming out, which is going to be the follow-up to Sound of Freedom. So totally different genre. And it's kind of this Orwellian sci-fi action thriller. And it's got some really good actors in it. They've got some names. They've got talent. And then they're going.
Split or something.
It's called The Shift. It's called The Shift. Right. And then
it's got McDonough and
yeah. And one of the guys from Mad Men, who's the lead. But they've got this anime coming out, which is based on Hebrew scriptures, and it looks really good. It's fantasy orientated, and it looks and feels authentic. And they're going after, obviously, the younger demographic. And I just say to myself, and mind you, these are all crowdfunded. They're not relying on donors. They're relying on their audience and what the audience wants. And I think that's kind of the brilliant notion of where we are today, where you can go straight to the customer and raise millions of dollars.
I think Fox might be the model where Fox said, we're going to do the same thing as the other networks, but we're distinctly going to aim towards conservatives. And that was the thing that drove the other networks crazy, because it can compete, and it does. And if you have a actual movie studio, and it wouldn't be named Angel or anything else, it'd be something generic.
Right.
It was, we are a normal studio. We're just going to make a decision to go for this audience.
Well, and also what's important about Fox, because you were saying you go on any show, right? I mean, I remember I've done the low, I won't name them because a lot of them have, actually grown, but I remember going to one show, the studio, and there was a box of makeup and you just kind of like do your own. Whereas you go to Fox News or some of the other now mainstream studios and there's makeup people, there's hair people. Fox spent the money to look the same.
Yeah.
Fox visually looks the same. OAN doesn't look like it. Newsmax doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
Fox looks like a network. It has a distinctive visual cue. And people can laugh at the very bright blues and very bright reds and the very blonde blondes, but Fox looks like Fox. And if you turn on the TV, you're like, that's Fox. And it's high quality stuff. And it's there, we've been in the studio. I mean, they're real studios with real.
Yeah. And they don't go like, well, who are some good conservative makeup and graphic designers we can get? It's like, no, they spent money on the best.
Yeah, they got the best, who are often conservative, frankly.
Oh yeah. I always have the best conversation with the hair and makeup people.
Oh yeah. Because hair and makeup is real. You either do it or you don't.
Well, you're talking about what I mentioned earlier, which is authenticity. And I think anything that we do in the pop culture format has got to look authentic. And what does that mean? It means it has to be equal to or greater than what the left does. Otherwise, people are going to look at it and they say, that's some B-movie crap. I don't want to watch that. It's got to be indistinguishable. Otherwise, you're not going to be sold on it. For me personally, that's
it defeats the credibility if it's like a B movie.
Right.
You've got to it's got to look and sound like everything else. It has to have the technical stuff, which costs money.
Yeah.
You know, I got producer friends who do this every day. I know how difficult it is.
But isn't that's the long game, right?
Yeah.
That our side just doesn't quite get yet. We're
always expected to do it for the cause, and it's like, I agree with your cause, but I want to get paid. And what's even better, I want to pay people to give me their best work.
People are always delighted to have you work for them for free. They are very generous with your time.
Yeah.
But guys, speaking of time, I have got to get going on some stuff.
No problem. No problem. Sadly, we're out of time. Kurt, go ahead and give everyone your social media coordinates so they can keep up with what you have going on.
You can find me and subscribe to me at Twitter at Kurt Schlichter. If you want, obviously go get the books, the Kelly Turnbull series. If you don't want to get them off Amazon, if you want them in hardcover or paperback signed, you can DM me and we can make those arrangements on the Twitter machine. And every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, my Townhall columns.
That would make a fantastic gift for Christmas.
Lots of people do. I've had to buy a giant box of these books because I'll get people going, Kurt, I need 2, and here's how I want them filled out.
Oh, poor you.
It is a giant burden.
Thank you for your service.
The crown is heavy, that's for sure. Everyone make sure and subscribe to the Post Millennial on YouTube and Rumble, and hit the bell for notification for more Pop Culture Warrior videos like this. And thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Kurt. Really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem.
All right.